Hello, guys. So today I was asked, what is the difference between Ernesto and Milky Way and which one would be better? Now, it's not completely clear to me what exactly the person is running, but they did mention they were running a lane. So I'm going to be guessing that they're running maybe a Vanchi. So I'm going to be talking how it differs because, of course, of course, Elaine takes great advantage of Milky Way skills, and Ernesto doesn't actually buff strikers the same way. So depending on who you're running to start with, it's going to make a big difference. For example, if you're running a Vonchi, automatically you should be running Elaine and not Ernesto. So let's look fast at the skills. So Ernesto's active, increase the attack power by 60% of the desired target for 20 minutes. Milky Way is 45%, but that's also critical rate. So already there we have an advantage in Milky Way because critical rate versus 15% attack power is much better. Then a wise man advice, increase critical damage by 15% and reflex by 10% of allies within the line within the position for 5 minutes. I mean, Milky Way 6, and that already kind of never fully stacks. But the thing you want to point out is Ernesto's slow. He's not Milky Way. Milky Way can go ridiculously fast, but Ernesto is like 325 speed, and he doesn't have a special speed skill. So this makes it extremely weak. So you're not even going to be waiting to fully stack this. Honestly, I would just consider you have 2 stacks here, and I'm being generous, to be honest. So 2 stacks of this, critical damage 30%, reflex 20%. Again, it fully depends your striker. If your striker doesn't have a lot of critical damage, this could be pretty nice. But if he does, for example, once again, a Vanchi, this is trash. For obvious reasons, because, when you're running 300 critical damage, an extra 30 makes no difference. I mean, critical damage is good, but you're not helping the chance of critting here. Well, in Milky Way's case, her action thing increases action speed 15%, reflex 15%, attack power by 15%. So, well, the reflex part is just clearly better. Action speed actually helps you, especially if you're running utility once again. It helps you shoot. It's going to help in multiple levels. Plus, it's going to help her stack even faster, who once again explains how she will be much more capable of holding the free stacks. Attack power 15%. Well, that just helps. It's a nice 45%. It kind of makes up for the lack of the active. I'm going to say the critical damage buff is still more powerful than the Milky Way damage buff. But again, it's going to be extremely hard to stack it. The timing is really low. So on this aspect, I would still advise Milky Way. High-speed mobile warfare. Now, this is the one part where Ernesto beats Milky Way. Increased receiving passive effect 30%, critical rate 25%, and action speed 20% of ally within the position. Again, Ernesto will never be as fast as Milky Way, but giving a 20% speed line buff is nice. He's kind of helping the fact he doesn't give crit anywhere else. And receiving passive effect 30% is always a nice little touch. Then his last skill is decrease the incoming damage by 40% and increase the action speed by 25% for 5 minutes when being attacked. So again, Ernesto needs to be attacked to survive to stack this, and he has a line buff. These are the only ways he's going to get fast. It's still kind of limited and can't even outrank the Milky Way free stacks, and this is not counting the fact she has better base speed. You can stone her differently than Ernesto, so I still wouldn't say that Ernesto's faster, but I do want to point out he has DR when being attacked. Now, he needs to be attacked for this skill to stack, who's a little bit problematic because most of the time, if a backline penetrates, they will kill you. That's like what a normal backline would do. Okay, especially if all you have is 40% DR. I mean, I just penetrate through backline and midline with my Leia. So most of the time, this isn't going to be the best skill because the thing is, he will die when this starts stacking, especially if he survives it once. The second time he'll die, and then he'll never be able to stack it again. So I'm not a fan of Rebirth of Element 2. Of course, if you have some sort of global healer on movement, for example, Shu, Metatron when being attacked, this will be a little bit better, but especially in PvP, this is not going to show a lot of value. Now, with Milky Way skills, I gotta say the DR skill is better than Ernesto's because it's decreased the damage when attacking by 45% and recover spirit by 45%. So first of all, she's going to be a spirit gen, something that Ernesto is incapable of doing. And I think we can all agree that, Spirit is the lifeline of a frontline, especially if you're running, again, utility, because that's what she's for. But on top of it, it's pretty good because the decreased damage is just permanent. There's no form of stack, and it's going to be on a steal. So being able to steal the ball in a front line is something extremely important, especially since on top of it, she has much more reflex than Ernesto. She can be built for reflex, and she's going to be able to stack an extra 15%. Not to mention, she's also going to be able to keep free stacks very often. So I'm going to say steal-wise, spirit gen-wise, Milky Way wins. Critical rate buffing-wise, critical wins. Milky Way wins. Damage-wise, it depends if you have a critical damage striker. People who do are going to prefer Milky Way. People who don't consider Ernesto's better. Now, if you're running something like a one-hit KO striker, for example, Shanti, Char, you should go towards Ernesto instead of Milky Way. Again, Milky Way is more on a utility front. So it's, for example, if you're running something like Vonchi, you're running a Bora, you're running a Van, something that has a utility. Because again, her entire point is to buff the speed and to keep stacking and stealing. So she's going to be pretty good at that. The only thing is she's very weak to being penetrated. But again, endgame, backlines will Shrek whatever the hell you got facing them. So it doesn't make that big of a difference, sadly. And even Ernesto, it's decreased damage 40%, so it's not going to make that big of a difference. Now, I do want to make just a small note to point out that there is honestly a better replacement than both of them, called Armel in the dark section, who really blows them both out of the competition because she takes both players' best skills and maxes them out. Plus, she has a damage increase active. She has penetration online, who's a much better line buff than this guy. She gives speed. She gives critical rate and reflex at the level of Milky Way with a better timer. So, yeah, if you're really looking for the best option, to be honest, it's Armel. But between Milky Way and Ernesto, they're both decent. They're just really specific on what line you have. If you have one-hit KO striker, Elaine is kind of better than Ernesto, but Ernesto can still hold his own. If you have a utility striker, Milky Way is clearly the way to go. So Ernesto is basically if you're not running Elaine. Or your mono Wormwind, of course. He's good. He just doesn't really max out on anything. And for someone that's more based on one-hit KO strikers, it's pretty bad, in my opinion. So I hope this helps you guys understand the difference between Ernesto and Milky Way. And again, if you're looking for a totem, Armel is a combination of both that's completely broken. I'm closely finished building her up, and soon I'll be able to show gameplay of that too. Have a good day, guys.